Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Parlay Revival. It's ironic that just last week we did an episode of the Blue Gold, which ran aground during Cyclone Pam after losing one of their anchors and dragging onto a reef.
Doesn't matter where I got it from and how much I paid for it. It's no one's business. Yeah, I own it, that's it.
And this week we meet a couple on a Lagoon 450 who lose their anchor and chain and also end up stuck on a reef right here in Vanuatu. So we had left the anchorage of the Blue Gold and we were heading north to meet up with our new friends on their Lagoon 450, but it was a horrible passage with lots of rain and high winds. The good thing was that we were absolutely flying along, and in no time we had made it to a beautiful group of islands. It was literally the first real passage that one of our new crew members, Leon, had done, so he was a little worse for wear for a while there.
Well, it was pretty damn rough, and I did throw up early this morning, but I don't feel too bad now. Very first time out on an overnight trip like that, for sure.
Oh, there he did.
What is that?
I don't know, maybe a mahi?
This is what a real butcher does, Jamie. There's a ship in distress out here somewhere. Not in distress, but just asking this other boat near them for assistance. But I don't know where.
Europa, this is Jimmy. Gemini, this is Europa. At the moment we have 7 nautical miles, 7 cables.
Oh, it was one boat's got an issue with their sail and they can't change course. Wherever they are, neither of them have AIS, so I don't know what's going on. So this is the Maskulyne Islands? The Maskulynes.
Maskulyne sounded correct.
It's masculine with a Y. And that's a Lagoon 450. We met them at the restaurant the other day. They own that island. So they've invited us over. At least we can say we're on a private island. Is it grabbing already? We found a spot to anchor. We're up in a place called Cook's Bay. Oh, everywhere we tried to anchor, which was about 4 different places, was coral bottom.
The Maskulyne Islands were absolutely beautiful, and another place that we would never have had the pleasure of coming to had we not had a sailboat. Sam and Andrew had invited us over to their private island for a welcome dinner, and not knowing what to expect, we packed a couple of things and cruised on over to Bagatelle Island.
You guys built this? Yeah, with a lot. So nice.
They had definitely downplayed the amount of work that they had done already, and it was pretty impressive to learn about how they and the locals had transported all of the materials to build this place out in the middle of nowhere. They had taken a massive gamble buying such a remote island, so difficult to get to, and they had bought a Lagoon 450 in Australia as their main mode of transport to and from the island. They had never really sailed before this, which partially contributed to them ending up on the reef that night, but more on that later.
You also add the soil just to keep the moisture in the heat.
Little did we know, the locals had been preparing a meal for us all afternoon, in a traditional way very similar to what we call a hangi back home in New Zealand.
Here we go! Nice!
It has been cool to see the similarities in all of the Polynesian cultures, but also the subtle nuances of their own developed over generations in their different environments.
I reckon it looks so good.
When are you guys going to be open for business?
We're hoping to have people here by December. Just family and friends, do a soft.
Right.
Yeah. Bagatelle Island Resort.
Bagatelle Island Resort.
Yeah.
Google it, people. Look at this place. Unreal.
Vanuatu is also famous for having the strongest kava in the world, so we cautiously only had 1 or 2 bowls so that we would be able to walk later that night.
Go, 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 go.
The locals were unbelievably friendly and had put in a massive effort for us, so it was a pleasure to give a few of our filleting knives away for them to use.
And the purpose of these knives were to give to communities that we meet as we travel the world. Morning guys, last night was so fun. I think the people of Vanuatu are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Everyone is just so friendly, so generous. It was awesome, right?
Epic. Such a warm welcome.
So we've gotten to know Andrew and Sam a little bit, and we've found out that they actually ran that boat aground right over there. They haven't had the boat for long, and they have very, very little experience. They'll be the first to admit that. And they were anchored in that bay where we were trying to anchor and we couldn't get a good hold. And they started dragging. So they let out some more chain, which is the right thing to do. and the chain wasn't attached to the boat. So they dumped their entire ground tackle, anchoring all of their chain into the ocean, and I think it's in around 30 meters of depth. So they haven't been able to see it, and even the locals haven't been able to free dive for it. So we think it's pretty deep, but we want to help them out today. They're going to go back to Port Vila. So we've got to try and get this done in this morning. But the only thing I have to go off is their track. So I'm going to follow their track with their boat and try guess where that anchor is roughly. And we'll put some marks down. We'll take you guys through it, but we got a bit of a process happening to try mark and then find this chain and hopefully get it back up onto their boat.
It's always some sort of adventure here.
So yeah, let's try and retrieve this anchor for them. It's a beautiful sunny day, so the visibility should be good. Let's go rescue an anchor. Good 450.
Morning! How are you feeling?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah? You ready to get your anchor?
Yeah, that'd be good. Definitely. It's a bit dangerous not having an anchor on the boat. That'd be great if you guys could find it for us.
We've got a plan, Andrew.
Okay, Colin.
So I had a plan in my head which involved a random selection of items to locate the anchor. But first, I want to show you a little something about the Lagoon 450.
So this is a 2012 4-cabin Lagoon 450, exactly the same as Parlay. Andrew and Sam bought it in Australia, and it had the reinforcement kits installed on the bulkheads. The reason I don't like that is because when they do it, they don't think about straightening the boat before they do it. And we had a walk around last night, and there's a few of those little telltale signs that make it very, very obvious that the boat is a little bit bent, and to get the boat straight again is a major issue now that they've already put those steel plates in. The reinforcement kit is just that. It reinforces the bulkhead so the boat's not going to break. It's totally fine to cross oceans in, but it didn't fix the issue of the boat being bent. I'll show you a couple of things I saw. So areas like this corner, this wall here is buckled because when the boat bends, the whole superstructure comes up and it sort of compresses in this area and that area. Things like this where the joinery is starting to come apart, and even just by eye I can see a bow in the salon floor. Behind here you can see this is all deformed. This has got a big bulge in it here and it's concave there. This is the compression post for the mast. So as the boat's bent, it's sort of compressed all of this. So you'd have to take this off and have a look at the plinth underneath the compression post to see if that's all structurally intact, because we had a little crack under the post there. Then we can't see what's going on up there, but he said sometimes they get a leak here. And the door, when you close the door, they're not parallel anymore. It's frustrating to see, but I just know how much work it is to do it properly. But yeah, as I said, the boat's okay, it's strong, but it's just not straight. So what happened when you ran aground? How'd the locals get you off?
They tied the fenders underneath the side of the boat that was on the reef, and as the tide came up, they pulled us off with the two workboats.
So they came over at low tide and they used like drums?
Well, it was 2 drums, 6 fenders, and 2 floats.
Were you shitting yourself?
Yeah, we were. We thought.
Oh, we seriously did. Oh,
You thought you'd lost the boat?
Yeah, for sure.
No.
Well, we thought some damage was definitely going to be done.
And there was no damage?
The
Just a few
keel
scratches.
and the rudder were in the reef about maybe 30 centimetres. That dug in.
So it was kind of soft as coral.
Yeah.
It's soft enough, but it wasn't soft. It was hard, rocky coral.
But it was like a
But it
clearly...
didn't bend your rudders or anything?
Nah, it just sort of sunk in.
We were lucky.
Have you guys got insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I think because
Especially around
we're
here.
novice beginners, we definitely need insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with so many reefs around.
And what inspired you to buy a boat? Such a big boat as your first boat?
Just wanted something that we could have fun on and relax with friends. And
But it's also practical too for sailing around here. Made sense to go for a catamaran rather than a sort of motorboat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice having a home next to your other home right here.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's
exactly
pretty good.
right.
Once we were on the reef drifting, we rang the guys working on the island, but they didn't have signal, so they didn't get the message. And so we also messaged Marcel, who is in Maskulyne Islands over at Pescaris village, and he said, I'll be there in 15, and he comes straight out and it was a really good help. Like without them, it would have been so much worse.
Yeah.
Because as the tide come up, we would have drifted further and further onto the reef.
15 guys that came to help.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was just wild.
Wow.
Just pure manpower. And that's all we've found when we've been here. If we've ever got into trouble, the locals are just so willing to help, but they're also, they know exactly what they're doing as well. So it's,
they're special people, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
So at this point, I can just imagine the keyboard warriors coming out to say that Andrew and Sam are irresponsible for buying a boat with such little experience. Well, I'm going to be the first to come to their defense in saying that they are actually doing things right in terms of how they've handled being new boat owners. They hired a full-time captain to help them sail from Australia to Vanuatu, learning as much as they could along the way. They are fully insured and are learning more and more every day while sailing around Vanuatu. The anchor chain not being fastened to the boat is something even a well-seasoned sailor may have missed, and their humble attitude in admitting they are such beginners is what makes them willing to seek help when needed. I feel that it's people who think they know it all when they don't that are the real dangers at sea. And I for one can assure you that when they lost their anchor chain that night in the pitch dark, it would have been extremely disorientating and difficult to find their bearings, especially in the windy conditions that made them drag in the first place. So therefore it was a pleasure to help out Andrew and Sam, as this was a really difficult situation for them to be in.
I'll just tell you the game plan just while we're out of the wind. We're going to drop a weight down when we get the boat back to where it originally was, where it started dragging, we think. We'll drop a weight down, put a couple of fishing reels on it just to make it more visible down there. We've got a 30-meter line, and then we'll tie a fender to it. Just to make the fender more visible, we'll put a life jacket attached to that. So we'll put one at the front, and then where they dragged, we'll put one at the back. Technically the anchor should be somewhere between those two lines. The problem was that as they were dragging, they also drove sideways a little bit. It's over there at the end of that reef somewhere. Find out where it all happened is to get this boat's GPS back over those spots. Let's go!
This sounds like a really fun and complicated math equation. To find the 2 points of intersection. What else would you want to do for your morning?
Another thing I love about this boat is the surrounds. He's got a full surround up here, so you're completely enclosed and out of the wind and all the elements. We do not have that on Parlay.
So we started preparing all of our lines, which would be crucial in keeping some marks as to where the anchor could possibly be.
Double sheep band.
Without them, the bay was simply too large to be swimming around in circles aimlessly. And at 30 meters, it wasn't as though we would see anything from the surface.
Do not look at my not flying prowess.
Did you think about this all night last night?
Yep. Woke up this morning with a clear picture in my head what to do. Kind of need to drop a marker here, drop a marker here, and just search that whole area there. Yeah. His starboard sail drive isn't going into gear.
It's crazy how so many boat owners go through the same issues that we did. Andrew had a slipping cone clutch in his sail drive, which stops the engine from going into gear. Not ideal when I'm driving someone else's boat surrounded by shallow reefs everywhere.
Did you know you signed up for a salvage job?
No. I'm doing Pedro's job. He had all the mouth and talk last night. He's not even here.
So we followed the track on the chart plotter to where we believed Andrew had lost his entire chain.
Yeah?
We put one marker at the start of where we believed the spot could have been, and the other over where they had started motoring ahead, hoping that the gear would be somewhere in between. Once the marks were set, we headed back to the mooring that Andrew had the locals make for him out of an old anchor and an engine block.
Okay. He's got a slipping cone clutch, so I have to wait a while until it grabs eventually. So the reef's right here. It's pretty sketchy. Okay, we got our two markers. So hopefully the chain is somewhere between those two, but it's really hard to tell what happened that night, and it was pitch black, so he doesn't really even know which way he was facing. So 22 meters deep, according to this.
So once we were back at the mooring, we called Jamie to bring Parlay over so that we would have more equipment on hand.
Okay, coming over now.
I had a feeling it was going to be tough to locate the chain, so I was pretty stoked when the locals showed up.
The locals are going to help now that we've marked where it could be. I might not even have to get wet here. They've got a magnet on the end of the line.
and drag it across the bottom.
Yes. Do the magnet.
Yeah, nice. Hey! I knew there was absolutely zero chance that the magnet was going to work, but we had a little laugh about it anyway. We then hopped into the water to start freediving the area which we believed to be the resting place of the anchor and chain. We could see nothing at all from the surface, and even diving down, the water was surprisingly murky. Only a couple of us were able to get down to the bottom, and I noticed a big drag mark across the seabed. But to my dismay, this was only one of many drag marks in this bay, so it was a total bum stare. We wasted so much time and energy dropping down and following dead ends that I decided to suit up and see what I could do on scuba. But we had only one tank, so I had to make it count.
Alright, who's coming in with me?
I'm going. I'll put them.
Who's watching my back? Got my knife in case a shark comes.
Fish man.
This one, yeah? Alright, scuba time.
So I went down one of our markers and followed the bottom using my compass towards the other marker. As you can see, there were drag marks crossing over each other in all directions, so I ended up taking a gamble and followed what I thought was the most recent drag mark. And would you believe it, after following it for what felt like 10 minutes, it was actually the correct one and led me right to the anchor. This was an absolute fluke. However, I was far from our markers and had nothing to tie to the anchor. I was in 30 meters of water with a current flowing, so if I surfaced here to get a rope, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to find the anchor again. So I went all the way back to one of our markers and swam what felt like around 100 meters holding a 30-pound weight. I'm not sure if any of you have tried this before, but it definitely was not easy. I also didn't want to leave the weight down there while we pulled up the anchor, because there'd be zero chance of me finding that again. So I tied everything to the one line and came up on my last bit of air in the tank.
Got it!
The boys had no idea what had happened down there, apart from seeing our mark move about 100 meters across the bay, so they were pretty happy to find out that I had located the anchor.
That's gonna be heavy.
So the technical stuff was done, and now it was just a matter of brute strength to get the gear back. And that was something we were not short of.
Yep, we got it back. Now we're just gonna get it on the boat.
So we removed his temporary anchor and chain to give back to the locals, and proceeded to feed his original chain back into the anchor well, making sure it was fastened to the boat this time.
There you go.
Why is the whole wrench set out?
I tried to put this together last night when we started drifting, but it didn't go too well.
Colin will never know.
What was so wrong about it?
It was back to front. Nah, she's all good now. Got the original anchor back.
That was wild, man. When I went down on scuba, I couldn't see the anchor anywhere. And there was more than one drag mark, because this is all coral here. People are dragging all over the place. So I just picked one and I just started following it. And I said, I'll just go another 5 meters. So I just kicked a little bit further, and there it was, the anchor and the chain sitting right there. So I had to swim back, pick up the dumbbell, but I had to inflate my BCD fully, like it was just like full of air, so that I would like have a little bit of buoyancy holding a 30-pound dumbbell, and then swim back with it, towing the life jacket and fender that I had at the surface, stitched everybody up by lifting a 1/2-inch chain, an anchor, and a 30-pound dumbbell. It was so heavy. Those boys are strong and we were struggling. He's all set up now and he's just left to go back to Port Vila to fly back to Australia. Good on them though. You gotta start somewhere, right? Best way to get better at something is to just get out there and do it, and that's what they're doing.
I didn't see Pedro doing too much, and he was talking the most last night about pulling the anchor up, but he also was the one that drank the most beers, Scotch and Gava, so he probably would have been much help this morning anyway, but he was there for moral support at the end, so it was good. Good to see him sitting on the forepeak of the fiberglass boat doing f*** all.
Last night he was saying, I'm gonna find the anchor, I'm gonna be the one to find the anchor.
Yeah.
We found it!
Found it.
There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hit subscribe if you're new here, and we'll see you at the same time next Sunday.
Yeah, that was unbelievable though. When you said it was right there, I looked, you know, from that marker to that marker, and pretty much dead smack in the middle. Unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah, got very lucky.